What's up, guys? Welcome back to another Destiny 2 Season of the Worthy video. In today's video, I'm going to be covering the Seventh Seraph Sidearm and how well it performs. So first up, how to obtain this weapon. Essentially, in Season of the Worthy, there are multiple activities you can do, from the Daily Bunker to the Seventh Seraph public tower event thing to lost sectors to the specific Rasputin bounties. Like, there's so many ways to get this weapon. So this does fall into the lightweight frame archetype of sidearm, so it does shoot pretty quick, which means you're not going to have as much range, but you do have a little more stability, handling, and reload speed. First up, let's go over PvE. I'm going to pull up the perk pool and see if we can get a pretty solid god roll out of this thing. So I do have one. I have one that has Demolitionist and Dragonfly, and then I also have one that has full auto and Vorpal Weapon, which I like both of them, but we're going to see if there's like a 100% god roll here. So if you look at the barrels, for PvE, I really don't think it matters. The vertical recoil is already pretty good on this sidearm, so maybe cater to range or stability with your barrel types. That's my recommendation there. Magazine-wise, we do have a lot of options here. I think for PvE, obviously one of the better ones that you can get in general is something like a pendant mag or extended mag, where you do have an extended magazine size. I've noticed that the magazine size on these lightweight frame sidearms isn't big, so having a bigger magazine would help, and you don't have to waste the mod slot with something like backup mag. Obviously, you do have something like drop mag, which you do have that faster reload speed, but you also lose out on ammo, which doesn't make a lot of sense. You have alloy mag, something like accurized rounds or steady rounds. You know, those are okay. I think those are more catered for PvP, and if you want something in PvE, maybe cater to the magazine size, like I said. Now let's go over trait column number 1 here. The first perk that I noticed is Demolitionist, which I think is always a good perk, especially if you're rocking a grenade build. Basically here, if you get kills, you get grenade energy. When you throw your grenade, it automatically reloads the weapon, which can save on reload speed, which is good, especially if you have something like extended mag, like I mentioned. Threat detector won't be bad either, because it's a sidearm. You're going to be close to a bunch of enemies. And that's the whole purpose of a sidearm. It's CQC. And so if you're near enemies, you get that boost to stability, handling, and reload speed. Something maybe even like auto-loading holster would be good, but then you have something like field prep, which you do get more ammo for this primary weapon, which I don't think is the issue, but if you crouch, you do get that increase to reload speed, which is really nice. So I would say maybe your top options here would be something like threat detector number 1, and Demolitionist maybe number 1 as well. I feel like those two can be a tie. It depends on what build you're using. And then maybe if you don't have those two, maybe if you have auto-loading holster or field prep, those two would work as well. Going over trait column number 2. We have a few options here. You do have something like Vorpal Weapon, which is nice if you're going up against bosses. I've actually used this sidearm, and it actually feels very strong when it comes to, you know, enemies like majors, mini bosses, and bosses. You do notice that extra damage with this weapon. Another cool perk, which I think is probably one of the top options here, is Dragonfly. Basically get a headshot, and they explode with the energy of the weapon, which is void energy, so you just get a headshot. Unfortunately, one of the difficulties with the lightweight frame sidearm is that it's not very precise when it comes to headshots, so I don't find myself getting a lot of headshot kills. Dragonfly is a pretty solid perk. I think for this sidearm, it's probably not the most effective, just because you can't hit precision shots that well. I think the number 1 option out of here would be something like Surrounded. Again, if you pair that with Threat Detector, basically you're around a bunch of enemies, you do get that damage bonus. You could put a Surrounded spec on it, which basically makes Surrounded last even if you're not around enemies, and you get an extra damage boost. So I think Surrounded is probably the top option here, and then Vorpal Weapon, and then I think Dragonfly ties with Vorpal Weapon. If you're able to use this sidearm and actually get headshots with it in PvE, I would go with Dragonfly. Let's go over PvP. I think we all know that sidearms have come up in the recent seasons as good, viable weapons to use in both PvE and PvP. So let's pull up the perks that are available, and let's make the god roll, right? So number 1, I think one of the things here is that you're going to want to go with Hammerforge Rifling, Extended Barrel, or Polygonal Rifling, because you want that increase to range or stability. And I feel like those are your top 3 options there, in my opinion. Number 2, if you're going for a magazine, number 1, accurized rounds for that increase to range. You do get a good bump in range. I guess second option would be steady rounds. You do get that increased stability, but you do lose out on a little bit of range. But if you already have a range barrel, that can compensate for that. So I wouldn't be too worried about that. It is a sidearm, so you're going to have to be fairly close anyway. Trait column number 1. I like full auto, to be honest. Being able to just hold down the trigger with the sidearm, since it does fire fast, sometimes you can't pull the triggers fast and maybe you mess up and you miss a shot or something like that. So just being able to hold down the trigger can be extremely helpful as well. Maybe a second option would be something like Threat Detector. That's what they have highlighted here. Just because it is a sidearm, you're going to be near enemies, and having that boost to those stats would be pretty nice. I would say third option, if you wanted auto-loading holster, go for it, because if you're going to whip out something like, you know, a sniper, considering it is a sidearm, I don't think you'd just be straight CQC. If you are, that's fantastic. I'm not going to crap on your build. Everybody likes to play like how they want to play, if that's English. But auto-loading holster, being able to put that sidearm back and have it automatically reload would be very nice. Trade column number 2 here. I think probably one of the best option here is Zen Moment. Basically, if you hit the target, it basically gives you stability. So if you consistently hit a target, you do not have like any recoil on this weapon, which is nice. They do have Elemental Capacitor highlighted, which essentially, depending on what subclass you're using, you do get a boost to either handling, stability, or reload, I believe is how that works. So it depends what build you're rocking. So I would say Elemental Capacitor is iffy just because there's so many options with what you're rocking and your build. But I would say Zen Moment number 1, maybe Elemental Capacitor. And I would maybe even suggest something like Vorpal Weapon too, just because if you're trying to shred down supers, being able to have a primary that can actually do that versus specifically using a special weapon, you can probably help yourself out and your team. Another cool thing on the PvE side, if you're using a Warmind cell build, you can actually utilize this weapon and have Warmind cells actually spawn, which is pretty cool. So I know I've used this before in something like the Legendary Lost Sector when I'm doing it solo, and you know, I do find myself using the sidearm in PvE fairly often, which is very nice. So if you do have a Warmind cell build, maybe consider using this weapon. Going over my final thoughts, overall, do I think this is the best sidearm in the game? Absolutely not. I think there's a lot better sidearms, especially for PvE and PvP, but can it compete is the question. I believe it competes more on the PvE side of things than PvP, but if you like it and you can make this weapon effective, I'm not going to crap on it. Alright guys, looks like we're at the end of the video. Just wanted to cover 3 things with you. Number 1, about support. If you're looking for the number 1 best way to support me, there's a link below that'll take you to a 4-minute video that I made a while ago. If you want to go watch that, that'd be awesome. If not, it's definitely not going to hurt my feelings. You can also subscribe to the channel, like this video, share this video, follow me on social media with the links below, and all that great jazz. Number 2, regarding social media, I have a Facebook page, Twitter, Instagram, Discord, and a few others. If you would like to keep up to date on Destiny 2 related content, be sure to use those links below to find me on those platforms. And number 3, going over the clan, if you're looking to join my clan, we have some spots open on all platforms. We're looking for active players and community members in the Destiny community. And typically we like to play casual PvE and PvP a majority of the time. I'm definitely all about that solo grind, but I'm willing to definitely play with people in the community, like definitely willing to do that. If you're looking to join, there's a link to the clan page on the Bungie.net site below, and all you have to do is request to join and I'll approve it. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. We'll catch you next time.